Welcome back, friends and conspirators. Today I want to take a look at something that I've seen discussed a couple of times online, but I know is the subject of some debate. So the topic is
big tires.
now that I've had a chance to try several different types of tires and sizes of tires, everything from a baby fat tire to a plus tire down to the regular sizes, I think that I'm a little more qualified now to have an opinion on it. So what I've found is I do have a very strong preference, and there are some really kind of interesting features that make up the difference. A year or so ago, maybe two now, I guess, I switched from a Giant Anthem that had 2.2-inch tires on it, and I was pretty happy with the feel of that bike. I switched over to a plus-size tire bike, my Cannondale Bad Habit Carbon 1, and what I found was that the plus tires were great, but I had this feeling that I was cheating everywhere I went, so I had to keep both bikes to make sure that I was, covering both of the bases and still able to enjoy the sport that I had come to know it, that I've been riding for probably 12 years plus in that format. So that bike I had anywhere from a 2.1 to a 2.3, I think was the biggest tire I put on it, and had gotten quite comfortable riding those. Switching to the Bad Habit meant that I was switching up to a 3-inch tire, which was significantly different. So each of these things does what it does exceptionally well, but depending on your riding style, you're going to find that there are some significant advantages to one or the other. So first off, I have a set of Maxxis Minion FBF that measure in 27.5 by 3.8 inches. These are my new tires. I used these this winter to ride our hard pack and icy trails, and they worked exceptionally well. I was continually amazed at just how well they held up and what a great job they did. I went with the FBF on the front and the rear. The rear position I had turned around for traction design reasons, and I did not run the FBR because of availability. I wanted to get out there and get riding while I could. So these tires were actually amazing. The width of the tire was actually just perfect for our type of riding in this area. It measures in just under 4, not quite the 3.8 that it says. I think it was 3.73 or something like that. But it's a phenomenal tire. I run them at a fairly low pressure. The tire that I took off of the bike was the Schwalbe Knobby Nick, and it measured in at 27.5 by 3 and was a fabulous tire. I got a lot of really great use out of it. As you can see by the sidewalls, I ride it with a fairly aggressive riding style, going over stuff, and it's a pretty aggressive tread. So regardless, what I found was, again, that I felt like I was constantly cheating with this tire, and I wasn't happy with that. The other set of tires that I like to run on the bike are also Maxxis. They're the Recon Race, and they measure in at 29 by 2.35. Those are a great tire, and I've really grown to like those ones as well. They're nice and light, and they help me to make the most of the wheel configuration that I'm running. The wheels that I'm using, basically, I've got an E13 TRS Plus rim on this one with a Cannondale SI hub on the front and a Hope Pro rear 4. Fantastic combination and absolutely bulletproof. These things are light and they're fast, and I love the rollover that I get with the 29. So I didn't want to give that up. So one of the interesting things that I also saw when I started looking into this, these different configurations was this. So when I look at the 27.5-inch tire, you can see that there's a pretty big variance from the 29 to the 27.5 by 3 and the 27.5 by 3.8. That 3.8 width adds a tremendous amount of height and to the profile of the tire. So that also brought the rollover advantage and made me basically start to think maybe I do want to try riding these things in the summer, and maybe they'd be a lot of fun. But when it came down to it, what I found was, having done a good dirt / muddy kind of run, I really didn't like the feel of these tires. What I found was they roll a lot. They're really a very sloppy feeling tire, and it took a lot of the precision that I was kind of expecting to get out of it. Not overly surprised at that, but it definitely had an impact on my riding style. So the other part of where I wanted to go with this is that the 29 with the narrow tire configuration is really light, really playful, and it just directs the bike exactly where I want it, when I want it. On a fairly heavy bike, that's That's kind of important when I'm not setting KOMs, but I do try to hit a PR or a top 3 every time I hit a trail, and I think that these tires help me really, nail that down a little bit. But I did really enjoy the extra fun that I got from the plus size tires. So my takeaway in all of this is that the plus size tires are great for when you want to get out there and have some fun. Oddly enough, I found in my time trials that the plus size tires and the smaller tires were nearly identical in times. So the riding that I've done recently was on the 3.8, and I was able to get into some fairly dry conditions and some fairly muddy stuff. And what I found was that there was a tremendous amount of roll with that larger tire, and I just wasn't feeling comfortable with that. I do have to say, I do run them very soft. I run them probably in the 8 to 10 pound range. But that said, I also do run my 3-inch tires in the 13 or so pound range. So pretty lightweight stuff. And my 29s with 2.3s or 2.4s, generally I'll run around 23 on the back and 21 on the front. So I run pretty low pressures. So you'll have to take that into account as you consider your own pressures and the amount of roll that you see on those. The one thing that I have to say though is that neither the 29-inch or the wide 3.8 27.5 gave me nearly the confidence that the 3-inch tires gave me. What I found, I was able to get out there and I was able to try lines that I would never try on the smaller tires just because of the the rocks and whatever the tech was threatening my rims and to throw me OTB. But I think it was important that I was able to get out there on the 3s, try these things, then circle back around on the 29s and go through again and realize that I could hit it technique-wise. So the biggest difference, I think, was the confidence boost, but I have to say the traction that you get from a plus tire cannot be beat. It's got a great combination of the lightweight, flickability, and size. It's got probably close to the traction that you're going to get out of the fatter 3.8. But it's got none of the slop and none of the extra weight that you carry in that tire. The 3.8s are extremely heavy, whereas the 3-inch tire, if I'm honest, weighs almost the same as a really heavy lugged 2.4. So there's really no difference in weight in that respect. They're very, very similar. Of course, obviously my smaller 2.25s with cross-country casing are going to be a lot lighter even on top of that. But anyway, that kind of gives my synopsis of what this world is kind of looking like in times of tire size comes into question so often. I'm glad that we're seeing fat tires drop down into the 3.8 range. I think there's a huge advantage there, and it lets us run a baby fat tire in a bike that wouldn't otherwise fit without having to buy a whole separate bike, which is probably good to some and probably bad for others. But when it's all said and done, having 3 sets of tires that are distinctly different like this that I can flip back and forth on one bike is an amazing opportunity to allow me to do some really great comparisons and to really kind of craft the bike to the type of riding that I want to do that particular day. As you can see here, the tire profile, the height of the tires is nearly identical for all 3. The 27.5 by 3-inch tire is slightly shorter than the 29 by 2.25 and the 27.5 by 3.8. So we're getting the same rollover with the 29 as with the 3.8. So that's my 2 cents, and hopefully that's been helpful to somebody out there. If you have any questions, drop them into the comments. I'll take a look and I'll see if I can answer them. If you want me to test some kind of configuration slightly differently, I have ridden this with it's kind of a reverse mullet configuration where I'll run the 29 with the 2.35 on the back and the 27.5 with the 3 on the front, and that sets up well. It changes my head tube angle just a little bit, but it's actually a really fun ride as well. So if you want more information or to see videos and testing on any of those configurations, let me know and we'll see if we can set it up. In the meantime, make sure you try something new every time you hit the trails. I haven't noticed that big a difference between the 3 and the 2.23, or pardon me, 2.25 or 3.35 or 2. Oh my